This week on Quality Digest Live, do leaders really care about their employees?
We'll find out.
We're going to find out.
Plus, why tech innovation isn't necessarily the answer everyone thinks it is. That and more when we come back.
Today's episode of Quality Digest Live is brought to you by Exemplar Global's International Auditor Symposium, the ultimate online conference for auditing professionals. Visit exemplarglobal.org for more info.
And welcome back to Quality Digest Live for April 27th, 2018. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
Yep, and I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. In his article, What Does a Global Brain Look Like?, Trent Salvaggio, who's the executive director of the IoT Talent Consortium, discussed the idea of the global brain.
The global brain.
The global brain.
Doesn't that sound like a 50s horror movie?
Well, and actually, it reminds me of some movies I used to watch. Colossus, The Forbin Project.
That's right.
You remember that? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Well, the global brain actually, strangely enough, does relate to that. It's a term used by futurist Gerd Leonard to describe a world where computer systems around the world are connected, as are all of their inputs. So IoT devices, for instance. So if you can imagine, you have a computer system, it's got all these inputs, real world inputs, IoT devices going into it, and all of these computer systems are interconnected and communicating with each other. So kind of a computer system that has access to everything. Well, that's the global brain. And Salvaggio kind of describes it like this. These are his words. Think about the nearly countless amount of data feeds powered by IoT technologies and the constantly increasing amount of computing power being created to analyze that data in ways that were never even possible just 5 years ago. Now imagine all of these systems of data feeds and computing power connected with each other in an ever increasingly complex system of systems. Now that is what the global brain, as it were, is. And it could be used for good or it could be used for not so good, says Gerd Leonard. And in his video, which you can watch from down here, he talks about a lot of this. In that video you can watch in Salvaggio's article. Gerd says that a global brain raises ethical concerns because such a system becomes a global panopticon. Who controls it? Who has access to the data? If this sounds vaguely familiar, think of some of the questions that Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg faced before Congress the other day. It's like you have access to all this data. Who's in control? Who makes the decisions? What are you doing with it? Well, now imagine it's not just Facebook, it's the entire world is connected, and who's in control of the system? Who's watching it?
We can trust our governments.
Sure, of course, we can trust our governments. I'm sure they have our best interests in mind.
Yeah.
So Gerd asked the question, can technology get out of hand? Can it exceed our grasp? And that's, he has this idea, this panopticon, the kind of the all-seeing eye. You have this network that has one nexus, which is the system, but everybody is tied into it. And how, there's a lot of good that can be done with it. Think of the technological advances you could make with this. Think of, if everybody in the world is connected, think of what you could do with that for good, but also what you can do for evil. And he says something here that's really interesting. Related to that, this is a quote from Gerd. He says, civilizations are driven by their technology, but they are defined by their humanity. And that gets kind of to the whole crux of the issue. Technologies are always going to be there. We've talked about this before. We're going to continue to innovate. This idea of the global brain is not that far-fetched. Pieces of it are already in place. So what do you do with it? And that is why you have people who think about the ethical issues is, where does humanity step in to mitigate any of the negative consequences that come out of this kind of technology?
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, so again, powered by technology, but defined by humanity.
But defined by humanity.
And that is true. I think that's been true for every society that's ever existed on the planet. Was that, I mean, you can use what you know how to do. I mean, you think back, 3,000 or 4,000 years. I mean, when they first began to have iron.
Right.
Was it Bronze Age and then Iron Age?
Yeah.
I think. And societies that had access to those superior weapons were just dominant, right? I mean, you could take over huge chunks of your area, but it was the culture of, like, Rome, for instance. It was Rome's culture that really, and of course Rome's army, but I mean, that kind of two things go hand in hand. But it really was the culture of Rome that really made it a successful world culture and world civilization. So those things you need to have go hand in hand. So, are we at risk of having the technology get out of hand of our humanity? Well, not if we're aware of it, and not if there are ethicists, like you're saying, who are humanists that are looking at these things. Yeah, and there's a lot of those things. Cloning. I mean, there's a lot of these issues that are out there that we have to kind
of
the
whole CRISPR thing that's going along, and just modifying your DNA kind of on the fly. I mean,
where does that go?
Where does it go?
Yeah, right. All right. Well, our good friend Jim Harrington has recently been in the news with the publication of his latest book, Innovative Change Management: Preparing Your Organization for the New Innovative Culture. The book, which is published by Productivity Press, came out last month. I think actually came out in February, March. Came out last month.
CRC Press.
Well, CRC Press, I thought it was, well, anyway.
Yeah.
It's out now.
It's out now.
And now, I'm not sure, Dirk, you may know, I'm not sure exactly how many books Jim actually has out at this point.
Yeah, lots of dozens.
It's dozens. I know it's dozens, to be sure. I'm not actually sure how many frequent flyer miles he has either. I mean, it's millions.
Guy practically flies for free anymore.
I think he does. I think he in first class as well, I'm pretty sure. Well, Dirk and I, we've both had the pleasure of meeting Jim, getting to know him personally. But if you have never met him, take our word for it. He's as much a quality person as he is the quintessential quality professional. I think I can say that without any doubt of being overturned by you. His is a career dating back more than 6 decades, and he's got long stints with IBM, Ernst & Young, and his own company, the Harrington Institute. He's been a past president of ASQ and the International Academy of Quality. He's won dozens of awards and honors, literally from throughout the world, and he's written countless articles for professional publications, including, most notably, us right here at Quality Digest, for many years.
For a long time.
That's right. So we like Jim a lot. Now, innovative change management shows that he hasn't lost any of his passion or his wisdom for the art and for the science of quality improvement. He writes about how leaders can set the tone for breakthrough innovation and offers detailed tools for driving excellence throughout the organization. And like all of Jim's works throughout the years, this book focuses on the practical ways that quality can proliferate through a company when a culture and a focus of sustained innovation and effort is really allowed to take root. And that's really what he's talking about here. Now, again, the title of the book is Innovative Change Management. It's out now. So there's an article, I think, on the landing page here where people can go out and check that out and find out more about the book from Jim. And I think that the term guru, I think, is maybe thrown around a little bit much, but to me, Jim is a guru. I mean, Jim's been doing this. I mean, Jim is 90, right? I mean,
he's 90 years old.
He's 90 years old, and he's still on it, man. And he's still writing books.
He's going to be at the ASQ conference in Seattle
next week.
I think he's going back to Dubai again.
That's right.
Sometime soon.
If you're in Seattle next week, go look up Jim and ask him about his book. I mean, this is a guy who's made his life again. I mean, it's about aligning the culture with quality. And I mean, that's what all the great gurus have done. I mean, Deming and Duran and Crosby and Jim Harrington is in that realm. And he's still with us. So, check out Jim's book. The work he's still doing is great stuff there.
Yep. All right. Do leaders really care about their employees? That was the headline for Annette France's latest article, and in her article, she points to some pretty stark statistics. Among other things, reports France, 88% of employees in the United States feel that they work for a company that doesn't care for them.
88%?
88% believe their company doesn't care about them. 67% of employees don't trust their leaders. 2/3 don't trust their leaders. 7% of people in one survey said they'd been hospitalized due to workplace stress.
Hospitalized?
Yeah.
Not just like I need a day.
No, not just, but so stressed out they had to seek help.
Wow, jeez.
Okay. Franz then kind of sums it up like this. What Franz says is, quotes, "The problem, leaders don't care about their employees. Instead, employees are viewed as a cog in the wheel to leaders' success. Leaders drive toward growth, to numbers, and forget about the needs and the lives of the employees who help them get there."
Well, let me clarify that. So what she's saying is, the quote there is that leaders are concerned about employees driving their success. So what she said is, she said that leaders are concerned about employees helping them have their own success, not the success of the organization.
That's not the way. Well, yeah.
That's what the quote read. Now I'm not sure if that's exactly what she meant, but that's how I'm interpreting it.
The way I interpreted that is, their focus is on the company and the bottom line and so on and so forth, and employees are simply a means to the end.
Got it.
Yeah.
But like
which
I
of
say,
course does make them look good as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that seemed to me to be more of a personal. I'm the leader. You're here to help me have success and the company.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe she didn't mean it that way. If it's a broader meaning, I think it's a little bit better. But.
Well, see, and this is actually, you're kind of getting to my what I want to get into a little bit. I mean, we like Annette. I mean, she's been on the show. She has a great column. I like the way that she thinks most of the time. She writes a lot of great articles about the customer experience. And like I said, I think she was on the show here 3-4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I'm a little uncomfortable with her statement that, regardless of whether you interpret it the way I took it or the way you took it, because I think it's a bit too broad a brush, to me anyway. I think it implies or even reinforces this stereotype of the CEO as a money-grubbing, heartless, greedy, soul-sucking vampire, whose goal is to leave nothing but an empty husk behind of his or her employees, right?
Now, mind you, those people exist.
They exist. I agree. Those people certainly do exist. But I think much closer to reality is that CEOs simply don't know or understand how to lead with heart, which we'll get to in a little bit, or the importance even of leading with heart. They lead the way they were taught, right? This is what you do. You look at the bottom line. I mean, that's what the boss does, right? But I think there's a difference between being a poor leader by design, greedy, as opposed to being a poor leader by ignorance. And here's why this distinction is critical. And I know you probably think, well, what? The outcome's the same. Where regardless of why you're a poor leader and you're treating your employees like trash. But the distinction is critical, and here it's why. If your assumption is that a leader is simply morally and ethically bankrupt, then you might as well leave the company, because there's nothing you're going to do. If you really believe that your leader is Charlie Manson, there's nothing you can do with that, right? It's just like, okay, well, if he truly is Charlie Manson, then you're done, right? I mean, you might as well just leave, because you're not going to get that person to change. It's ingrained. It's who they are.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you consider perhaps that the leader of your company, your CEO, is a normal human being, just like you, with faults, just like you,
me,
and that they really want to do a good job, just like you, then you have a place to start working on changing that leader's perspective. And you have to have that attitude. You have to have that at least benefit of the doubt going forward. Otherwise, where are you going to start if you're going to say, look, we need to work with this leadership because the way they're doing all this is all wrong. The employees are demoralized, so on and so forth. If you don't look at the leader as possibly somebody who can be molded, who can be shown that, look, there's a better way that'll take care of the employees and meet the bottom line at the same time. If you don't think you can do that, if you don't give them the benefit of the doubt, you might as well not even start, because then it's just an adversarial relationship, and forget about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Annette Franz does have some suggestions on how leaders can change their perspective. First and foremost, she says, it's a choice. Everything we do in our lives as humans, as leaders, is a choice, says Franz, and so you can choose to lead differently. You can choose to align with the rest of the leadership team and the goals of the business. You can choose to care. Also, you can establish core values and guiding principles that set the tone for the company culture, one that puts people first. Create an environment based on trust and respect. You can adopt a servant leader mentality. We see that term coming back now. It was real popular back in the days of Ken Blanchard, 20 years ago. We talked about servant leadership. It's coming to the fore again. And this last one, which I think was really interesting. Leaders, Annette Front says, leaders must choose to put their employees' well-being ahead of all other goals and outcomes. Now, I can see a bunch of CEOs saying, yeah, wait a minute, I love my employees, but part of taking care of them is to make sure that the company succeeds. If the company doesn't succeed, the employees have no job, and what good is that for anybody, right? So where is the balance? And I think that's where we get into this a little bit is, are they necessarily mutually exclusive? Can you put your employees first and meet the goals of the company, which are all obviously to be a successful company, to make money for you, to make money for the shareholders if it's publicly owned, that sort of stuff? Are these mutually exclusive? And I don't think they are. It does take a different mindset, though. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think my first takeaway here is that change is hard. I mean, you read an article like this, and maybe you recognize yourself in it as a leader, and you say, well, boy, that's a good point. And you assume you're not a sociopath, and you actually do want to change.
Right.
You say, that's great, I want to do that. But what happens, I think, and I know this from personal experience, is that you go into it with the intentions, but we all have certain psychological profile that will cause you to fall back into your patterns. You have to be really aware of it, and it takes a really long, months many times, focused attempt to do that. To say, listen, I'm slipping back into not delegating, or I'm slipping back into getting angry, or I'm slipping back into not thinking about my employees' needs so much of being a servant leader as, we got to get this done. You do it. Don't ask me any questions. Many people fall into those habits, and even as you're doing it, they're saying, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, but whatever, I'm stressed out.
But I got to meet this goal,
whatever, right?
The shareholders are screaming.
So it's my takeaway is that it takes a focused intent, and people need to remind each other. I think the best thing you got going for you, and we have it here at Quality Digest, and I think it's to our great benefit, is the ability to just kind of course correct each other. To be honest and say, listen, I need you to give me more here. I need you to help me with this. Or I need you to hear what I'm saying. This is what my concern is. I mean, if you start with having a very open relationship amongst the team, everything else kind of gets easier. The change kind of gets easier because you can reflect it back to one another. If you start with I'm this and you're that and we're siloed, you can start making these changes, but they're never going to stick because you're always going to fall back into your habits of what you've built up for your career.
Well, it's a cultural change.
It's a cultural change, and you got to start with that. You start with the culture. Again, you start hopefully with this idea that we're all in it together, and we're going to have some communication, and we're going to be. It's just like any other relationship. You communicate about what you're actually feeling, and not hide what you're feeling. You got a much better chance of actually having the change that you all want to see happen. And being better at it. Good stuff by Annette Franz. We do like her a lot. Yeah, she does good. All right. Well, Dirk, ask any 100 business leaders. You can do this. I'm sure you've done it in your past. For the most important drivers of long-term operational success and growth, and many, I think, are going to put technological innovation at the top of that list, right? I mean, if you ask, we've all talked to business leaders. We've interviewed them. We've had them on the show. They're all going to say, innovation, technological innovation is where it's at, man. We've got to do that. Well, apparently that's not always the case. Why tech innovation isn't the answer everyone thinks it is the name of an article that appeared in the Quality Digest newsletter on Wednesday. And the piece was written by researchers Chan Kim and Renee Maborn of InSeed. Their recent book, Blue Ocean Shift, talks about their findings. That's a little interesting aside there, what the blue ocean they're talking about is.
I've never heard that term.
Yeah, I did a little reading about this, and some of it's mentioned in the article, and some of it you have to kind of dig a little deeper. So the red ocean is this ocean that's swimming with sharks. And the sharks are these competitors, and everybody is kind of trying to get to the same technological breakthroughs, and it's just much more limiting. The blue ocean is just open. It's open, there's not sharks in it. You have this opportunity to actually look at value as opposed to just the bare bones of technical innovation. The value innovation is what we're going to get to here. So the takeaways here are a couple. The first one they talk about is egg laying versus egg hatching. So what are they talking about there? Well, it's pretty much what we're talking about is the nature of innovation. Many times, companies are great at laying these eggs, at laying these great ideas that at some point in the future you're going to look back and say, wow, somebody actually developed that idea way back before it became well known and became profitable. That's an amazing skill. And if you have a team, an engineering team, a technical team, an R&D team, whatever it is, you have those people that can help you do that, lay those eggs that are going to be a foundation of great technological breakthroughs. That's incredible. But hatching the eggs is even more important.
Right.
So it's not so much...
Which bringing the ideas to life.
Bringing the ideas to life and bringing them to life in a way that can actually derive value for yourself and for your customers. And that's the next one. Technological innovation is not value innovation. And again, that goes back to that whole idea of technological innovation is the egg laying, value innovation is the egg hatching, is coming up with the idea and saying, where's the value here for our customers? For instance, a couple of things I talked about in the article. MITS, I don't know if it's MITS or MITS, is this company. They invented the first personal computer.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not IBM, not Apple. They invented the first, according to the authors, invented the first personal computer in the 50s, I believe. A company by the name of Ampex.
I remember Ampex.
Ampex first came up with the first video recording technology. I didn't know that either. Not Sony or JVC. So these companies, in the 50s, I think as well. I mean, so these companies are the ones that laid those eggs, but they never got the benefits of hatching them. They were hatched by other people that made a lot of money on those inventions. Value innovation, the authors write, anchors, quote, and this quote from them, anchors innovation to the value it gives buyers, not to the newness or cleverness of the technology, and is a cornerstone of market creating strategy for profitable growth. In other words, innovation for the sake of innovation does little, if anything, to help companies actually dominate markets. And that's what you're trying to do as a for-profit company. You want to dominate a market. And just coming up with the ideas, even if they're amazing technological ideas, doesn't matter as much if you can't derive the value. You need to figure out how to generate and create the value from those breakthroughs that customers have to have, right? So how does an organization get value innovation right? The author suggests asking and then finding the answers to three important and I think rather interrelated questions. First one is, how does the offering make customers' lives dramatically more simple, productive, and convenient, or fun and stylish? So again, you're looking at what the market will pay for, what the motivations are to make a customer want to pay for that. And they talk a little bit about some of the technical differences. For instance, the Ampex technology wasn't really ready to be taken into homes like JVC or Sony was able to do it a generation later. So you have to look at it and say, okay, what can we do with this thing? We got it, what do we do with it to make it easy, convenient, fun, interesting for people that are willing to pay for it, and what's the price point on that too? That's important stuff. The next one is, how does the offering dramatically reduce customer risk? And these risks can be financial, they can be physical, or they can be emotional, and it includes reputational risk. So I mean, how does it basically relieve a problem or an issue or a stress point, problem point that somebody's having? Or how does it create more value for them in their life? That's an important one too. And then finally, how does the offering deliver a leap in environmental friendliness, including social consciousness that customers value? How does it make them feel better about where they are in the world? How does it make them feel better about being a consumer and do things that they want to do with their lives? I mean, all these things are what sales and marketing people do within those organizations, and not every organization is able to, we call it the translation phase, is able to translate what the R&D team comes up with and say, okay, let's think about this. Let's think about this in the reality of what our customers or potential customers are doing in their lives. What risks are we addressing that they're having right now? And what is this going to alleviate for them in their life? That's a really different thing than just creating. I mean, the other example they use is the example of the Segway.
Right.
which was Dean Kamen, which was
Right.
a huge thing, if you remember, 15 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Never made any money.
Yeah.
Never made any money because people were like, what do you do with it? I mean, do you bring it on a bus? Do you drive on the street? Do you drive on the sidewalk? What do you do with it, right? It's like, it's a great idea. It really was a breakthrough in many ways, but what do you do with it? I mean, there wasn't that element of connecting it emotionally to consumers that are going to buy it and shell out money for it and have them do something with it in their lives. That's really the key point.
Well, I mean, do they address it in there? I mean, sometimes innovation and ideas, it's kind of like pure science.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's just for, and you may not have a use for it right now. But I mean, in the future, so maybe what they're saying is just because you've invented something doesn't mean you need to use it right now, because there may not be a market for it.
And there may never be.
And so, but you don't you patent it and you don't forget about it, but maybe somewhere down the line you can take that, add it to another technology, and then it has value.
And that's great, and that's perfectly valid, reason for technological innovation. But the flip side of that is sometimes you don't know what you got either. I mean, the classic example of that was digital photography.
right. Kodak.
With Kodak. I mean, we talked about it on the show. I've talked about it a couple of times where they were the ones who invented that technology, and then they didn't do anything with it.
Right.
Because they were afraid of impinging on their paper business. It's like, cannibalization is important. You better cannibalize your own business model or somebody else is going to eat your lunch. I mean, these are important questions to ask. I think that what you're saying is a little different. What you're asking is a little different from what they're talking about. I think they're saying that pure research, pure innovation, pure science isn't valuable. It's very, very valuable. It's actually the underpinning of all of this.
Right.
But what they're saying is if you're in business to bring products to market, that piece is more important.
Right.
Even if you don't know what to do with something, you should start thinking about what to do with it. You shouldn't
You're
just say
spending R&D money on
a
this,
lot
so,
of it. A lot of it, and you better be doing it. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is different because the outcome's always the same. They're going to get something to market that they're going to. It's not just like, well, this pill will fill a need in the computer business. I mean, it's very specific about what you're going to use this for. But some of these other technologies, consumer markets, are really complicated as to how you're going to be able to use some of this stuff. But you better
if it's really cool.
Even if it's really cool, you better have really good people working on that to figure out how to use it and bring it to market.
Yep. All right.
Yep.
Okay. So earlier we talked we talked about that article with Annette France, and I'm just going to throw an idea out here to you. See what you think. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Here's one of my takeaways whenever I read an article like Annette's, which talks about management issues and getting management to work together with employees with management in order to create a culture and that sort of stuff. And very often it comes down to, at least a lot of stuff I see, well, it's all about getting management to change.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, I mean, most organizations are top down. You are going to have to change the management, otherwise nothing's going to get done. But here's my thought. It's just as important to view your leadership with heart, so bottom up, view your leadership with heart, as it is for leadership to view its employees with heart. Mm-hmm. So in Annette's article, and she was actually talking about some books that she read from one of her favorite authors. This is the idea that you've got to care for your employees.
Right.
And that's the way I'm looking, is look at your employees with heart. In my mind, it has to work the other way as well. Otherwise, you won't get anywhere, right. I don't think.
I agree. And I think that, again, it comes down to the idea of communication. You have to trust each other, and you have to be able to say what you want. Like I say, it's just like any other relationship. You have to be able to say what you need in the relationship. And I mean, if you're a boss and you feel as though people that are working with you, working for you, aren't looking at you and not understanding that you're trying to look at them with a certain humanity and a certain heart, and they're just looking at you as a paycheck, essentially, or the company as a paycheck, you need to correct that.
Yeah.
You need to have a frank conversation with them about it and say, hey, I'm a person too. I'm doing the best I can. I encourage you to let me know if there's things that you think I'm doing wrong, as I will let you know things I think you're doing wrong. We can do better together. But you gotta have this idea that we're people. We're people who can communicate. I'm not this monolithic, again, aside from the sociopaths, I'm not this monolithic person who just isn't gonna emotionally understand what you're saying to me.
Right.
Work is a human endeavor. still, mostly.
right.
No,
The computer signal,
right.
the global brain.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's the kind of thing that you have to be willing to put your heart on the line a little bit and say, listen, you know, I need something here. I need something here in this relationship. I need you to trust me a little bit. I need you to push back, you know, in talking to your team if you're a leader.
Well, and I think in the same way that is alluded to in Annette's article, is that employees need to, and she didn't specifically say this, but it's implied in other in her writings and other people's writings, that you need to understand, hey, you know, your employees got, you know, they got lives, they got children, they got things they got to take care of. That, you know, they need need a good wage, and they need a balance between work and, you know, and family, and and you've got to care about that, and you know, try to somehow foster that or work with that. Employees got to realize that about the boss too, and also got to realize that the boss does have some responsibilities that they don't have, which is that the company succeeds. And the boss may not be able to give you everything you need, because to do so might endanger the company, which, guess what, endangers your job.
Well, the boss should be able to say things like that.
Well, exactly, and I think the boss needs to communicate that.
But you know, this is a
age old.
Yeah, and this has been forever. I mean, at least since the days of Deming, beat on the boss, beat on the boss, beat on the boss. You know, I mean, you know, Deming would always say, drive out fear amongst your employees. But what about the fear that the leaders have, right? I mean, exactly. You know, you want to try to drive that fear out too. I mean, fear proliferates. I mean, certainly a fearful leader who's doesn't feel like he or she can share with his or her team what's really going on and the support that they need is going to communicate that. You know, the employees are going to sense that reluctance to be open. Something's going on. I don't know what.
Why is it?
He's not looking in the eye. Something's going on. You know, so. It's always going to come out. You're better off being as transparent as you can and lead with your heart, because it's only going to make it easier for everybody in the environment, in the organization, to share and to be able to get to what's important. Right. And you make a really good point. I mean, I think that Annette and many people, I mean, this happens in a lot of columnists we have and people that we've heard in the industry, like I say, beat on the leaders, beat on the leaders. It's all the leader's fault. Well, maybe it is, and I think a lot of it is.
Well, and they're the ones who, in the end, make the big decisions. So in the end, it does fall to the leaders.
It does, and that's not fair. But what I'm saying is, there's also an element that, hey, there's a person under there too.
Right.
And I think that's good to remember every once in a while, at least.
Yeah,
there's a person in there.
Suck the life out of it.
There you go. Suck the life out of the leader, too. All right. Thanks, Jerk. All right, well, that's our show for this week. But before we go, of course, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Exemplar Global's International Auditor Symposium. Open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from May 7th to May 18th. The International Auditor Symposium brings you the latest quality, environmental, food safety, occupational health and safety, auditor skills, and integrated management system information right to your computer screen. Visit exemplarglobal.org for more information, or to register, or simply click on the banner ad just below, or just to the right there of this video player screen.
That's it. And that is it for today's Quality Digest Live. Thanks for joining us. Be nice to your boss. Boss, be nice to your employees.
That's right.
We'll all just get along. Kumbaya. All right. Have a great weekend.
See ya. Bye.